It's time for a Big Blue Kickoff Live.
Nobody can ever tell you that you couldn't do it because you did.
On Giants.com.
You know what I saw? New York Giant pride.
And the Giants mobile app.
17-14 is the final. One touchdown, we are world champions. Believe it, and it will happen.
Part of the Giants Podcast Network.
Let's go out there like a bunch of crazy dogs.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to Big Blue Kickoff Live right here on Giants.com and the Giants mobile app. John Schmeelk, Paul Dottino with you. We're coming with you a half hour early today, brought to you by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Football Giants. The free agent negotiating window is open. So between now and Wednesday at 4 o'clock, teams can negotiate with free agents not on their own team, and you can sign them to offer sheets and have verbal agreements, but nothing becomes official until you get to the league year at 4 o'clock on Wednesday. So right. We'll keep an eye on everything going around the league. There's already a lot of news this morning of things going on. We'll track it. We have NFL Network on in front of us here. Pearson's on Twitter. He'll find stuff for us as well. And we'll kind of bring you through everything that's going on. When it comes to the Giants, we have our rules here. If you've been with us before, you know what the rules are. Mm-hmm. If there's a report and we get the okay, and I'll be on my phone over the course of the show, we could talk about some of the reports that might come down, if those reports are legitimate. And then, of course, things will become official again. On Wednesday, when guys come in, they have to take physicals and do things like that to make reports official. Paul, did you get some rest this weekend? So you're ready to go this week for always a week of chaos?
Man, it was college basketball weekend for me, John. I was up in Boston on Saturday. Had to do an NEC semifinal. Merrimack advanced to Tuesday's NEC final against Wagner.
So in short, no.
In short, no.
Okay. Very good.
It was a long, long Saturday. And yesterday, you know what?
It could have been more exhausting than me taking my daughter to Legoland just for the
that's tough.
Yeah.
That's tough. Did you build anything?
No, she just ran around and played on all the rides.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah,
she could have run around, though, in your backyard or your park nearby.
No, but they don't have things to climb on.
That's true, too.
Like that, so.
That is true, too.
Yes.
Anyway.
And it was also raining all weekend, so that probably wouldn't have worked.
Yeah. But, hey, this is, to me, I know a lot of people find this time to be very exciting. I actually find it to be the opposite. It's very stressful. It's agonizing.
You find everything stressful and agonizing.
Well, you know, years ago, when you didn't have Twitter and all of the poppycock that goes out there all the time.
The poppycock.
You know, then it was great because because news was real. Now 80% of what you see is smoke. And so, no, I don't enjoy smoke. I don't enjoy smoking smoke. I don't enjoy inhaling smoke. So no, this is, to me, it's more of a stressful time because you have to sort through the smoke more than anything else. Anyway.
201-939-4513. I'll try to get Paul off his box here as we continue the rest of the show. 201-939-4513. All right, there was some news this morning that came down. We'll start first with Landon Dickerson.
Right.
The reason I bring him up is it could impact the rest of the guard market. I want to make sure I have these contract numbers exactly right. Landon Dickerson, who is an Eagles offensive guard, obviously, was not a free agent, but he did sign a contract extension with the Eagles. This according to Ian Rappaport. 4-year extension worth $84 million base, $87 million max value. And again, we'll see how much of that is incentives and stuff like that. A lot of times these initial numbers that get reported, they're not as high as they would appear.
Hence the smoke.
$50 million guaranteed, $20 million signing bonus. So he is now the highest paid guard in the NFL. That is after over the weekend or late, I think it was late Friday, the Rams re-signed Kevin Dotson for $16 million a year, which is where I thought the guard market would be, to be quite honest with you. Dickerson's obviously a little bit younger, but that's an important move. Baker Mayfield did re-sign with the Bucs, 3 years, $35 million a year, depending on what numbers you want to use. It could be a little bit more than that with incentives, but 3 years, $115, I think was the official number that was out there, but a lot of that is incentive-based. So that's out there. Russell Wilson goes to the Steelers on a 1-year deal. I'm sure it's for the league minimum because he has all the money coming to him from Denver. So that happened. T. Higgins demanding a trade from the Bengals.
Yeah.
No word if the Bengals are going to honor that request. They have him on the franchise tag. And then Michael Pittman Jr. signing a 3-year contract extension worth over $70 million from the Indianapolis Colts. So the case that wide receivers almost never become available on the free agent market anymore, at least the top ones, continues. And in a year where the cap jumped $10 to $15 million more than teams thought it would, we're going to see these markets continue to expand, especially certain positions.
Well, because it's also a great draft for wide receivers, that's probably part of the hope of the teams that are not going to be able to buy one, that they'll find one come the end of April. Nothing wrong with, hope springs eternal, right? I will say this, John. The Dickerson deal, we just mentioned the numbers, blows me away. I mean, people at the Combine said to me that the top of the free agent market for guards will be $18 million a year. That's going to be the richest. Whoever gets that, 18 is going to be it. And then you can start working your way backwards. So I was kind of hoping that the Giants may be able to get somebody for between 14 and 16 a year and see if they could land someone there. I don't know how much this Dickerson deal is going to warp those numbers, but it certainly could.
Look, the top of the market, I think you're right. And, we're talking, and Dotson was in that neighborhood. Robert Hunt's probably going to be in that neighborhood. Michael Onwenu's another name that could be in that top. And remember, he could play tackle, too, so he might even be closer to
he's going to be higher.
Because
he's going to be higher.
Team could decide to pick a right tackle.
He'll be at least 18.
So, yeah, I think he's in the 18 to 20 range rather than the 16 to 18 range. And I think you have guys like, Jonah Jackson, which will be more in that between 10 and 15 range. So, that's kind of that one level down, I think, on guards. Damian Lewis probably a little bit less than that. Dalton Reiser a little bit less than that evening. So it depends what level you want to go with here in terms of that. In terms of what the Giants might do here, Paul, obviously we'll see it with names and anything comes out over the next hour and a half. We'll try to track that for you under the guidelines we talked about a little bit earlier. But I think the Giants signings are going to come in two different modes here, and we'll talk about their own free agents in a second. No word on McKinney or Barkley or any other team yet. So they, I think, could have one or two signings, much like the Bobby Okereke signing last year, where you're signing a guy off of his rookie contract. He's a guy you think you know enough about where you pay him close to the, top of the market type of deal.
Okay.
And he could become part of your core and develop here. Now, Joe Shane has made the point that you'd only want to spend big money on guys that you know a lot about and you feel good about. So try to look for connections there with guys that they're familiar with. I think the rest of the deals will be more veteran stopgaps, and that could be 1 or 2 year deals. For guys like that, you could go to guys that are, 29, 30, 31 years old if you want, if it's just a 1 or 2 year deal, to fill holes that you might have, like corner or safety, edge. To me, if you're looking for a guy that might get that bigger contract, Paul, in the Bobby Okereke mode, it would be guard and edge rusher. I think those are probably the two spots that I think are most important that you have to go out there and fill.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be able to grab the edge rusher. I'm sure that that's a target, but I don't think, outside of Danielle Hunter from the Vikings and because of his connection to Patterson, I certainly thought last year that would have been a guy they might have been able to get their hands on.
Well, he's going to be $20+ million. I'm not sure they're going to go there.
Okay, well, here's the problem. If you're thinking about him or you're thinking about Huff from the Jets, who obviously has a very high efficiency in his pass rush.
Huff will be a little bit less than that.
Okay. How much are you going to see? I'm thinking 16 for the offensive lineman, and then any pass rusher you get, I don't see how you can go another 16 on a pass rusher.
If you design the contract a certain way, you can.
It's going to be hard to do because you're going to need that player to be willing to be pliable to make it work for you. I don't know that that's going to be that easy because there's not a ton of pass rushers in this free agent
I disagree.
class.
I think it's a thick pass
you like
rusher
it?
market. Yeah. I mean, I'll go through some of them. I mean, Danielle Hunter, Bryce Huff, Jonathan Greener, Josh Uche, Andrew Van Ginkel, Dorrance Armstrong, AJ Epinesa, Derek Barnett, Marcus Davenport. And I didn't even mention the veterans like Zadarius Smith and Leonard Floyd and Jadeveon Clowney. Yeah. I wouldn't go Chase Young because of the injury history, but that's a lot of pass rushers.
I'm not as high in a bunch of those names as you are. But that's okay, because that's all in the beauty's in the eye of the beholder. I'll be honest with you. Somebody said to me from Buffalo, don't you think A.J. Epinesa would be interesting to the Giants? We talked about him in the draft that year when we were out at the Combine, right?
He was an early second-round pick.
And he's had, 6.5 sacks each of the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, he would be a lower, not bottom of the market, but he'd be a guy you could get for under $10 million a year.
Okay, now see, I think that's the type of guy they could afford and make it still comfortable for them to do what else they have to do. I'm not so sure that really moves the needle a lot for me.
Yeah, but I don't know if you're moving. You just need bodies.
Well,
They don't have bodies. They have 2 edge rushers on the roster right now, and one of which is never healthy.
I know. Ojulari has been just an absolute mystery for this team.
So that's why I think you're going to have a decent amount of these shorter-term, mid to lower market guys that you need to fill holes because, folks, we've talked about this. The Giants have a lot of holes to fill right now. All right? You can't fill every one of these holes with a high draft pick or a top-of-the-market guy. You're going to have to spend judiciously at some of these positions. Whether it's at safety if McKinney leaves, corner if Adoree Jackson doesn't come back, maybe slot corner. I don't know what they think of Cordell Flott. 3 technique, defensive end, 2 guard spots. Mm-hmm. I just listed 7 or 8 starting spots here.
That's
and
why.
not to mention backup quarterback, which could cost you a decent amount of money too.
That's why if I'm going to budget 16 for an offensive lineman, I got to be very careful about how much I'm going to budget for the pass rusher because I got too many other holes to fill. I just the top guys that you just named, the top guys, the top tier guys.
At which spot? Edge rusher?
At the edge rusher.
Okay.
The top guys. Those are going to cost 20.
I don't think Huff's getting 20. I think Huff's getting around 15 or 16.
All it takes is one
I know.
crazy, big money, cap space team to say, here's 19 or whatever it is. And that's it. You can't talk to the guy.
And again, I think more likely than not, they only go after one guy at the top of their prospective market. I think that's more likely than not.
Okay, so
If
we're compromising
yes,
on this.
If they wanted to push it, I think you could do. And again, just because a guy signs a 3-year, let's say, 2 guys sign one guy signs a 4-year, $80 million contract. One guy signs a 4-year, $60 million contract. Right, $20 million and $15 million for each of those years. Right. Mm-hmm. That doesn't necessarily mean their first year cap hit. Is going to be that number.
Correct.
That's the beauty of it. You can get that down to $5-6 million if you want.
Yes, you can.
Push money to the back of the contract. You could work that. So that
Although
I think
Joe's
is something
not
you
big
can
on
figure
that.
out.
You know that. Joe is not real fond of significantly backloading.
I'm not saying put void years on it.
Okay.
I'm not saying put void years on it. Mm-hmm. I'm just saying you do a bigger signing bonus, a smaller base salary in the first year, and then you move, and then you have bigger base salaries towards the end of the deal.
See, I think your best hope to pull off something like that is a guy who's going to be on his second contract who thinks that he'll still be able to get a third contract if you only want to sign him to a 3-year deal and say to him, I want to try to maneuver the numbers.
Well, no, but that's the thing. It can't be a 3-year deal.
It's got to be 4.
Because then you can't move the money
Right,
back enough.
right. It's got to be 4. It's got to be 4.
4 or 5.
So it's going to have to be a guy who thinks that after he gets his 4-year deal, he's got another place that he can go and still wind up getting big-time money with another deal.
I mean,
at some
he's
point
still
later
getting
on.
big-time money. You know what I mean?
Well, again, big money is all in the eye of the beholder, right? How much is big money? How much is not big money?
All right, we got our first report here. Good job, Pearson. Mike Garafolo reporting DeAndre Swift, 3 years, $24 million to the Chicago Bears.
The Bears in the last 48 hours, according to the Twitterverse, were one of the hot teams after Barkley. According to the Twitterverse. I have watched the Twitterverse the last weekend, and they were one of the hot teams.
I'm actually surprised that Swift got as much. I'm curious to see what the actual numbers are there. $8 million a year seems a lot for him, to be totally honest with you.
I would agree with that.
Considering Miles Sanders just got 6 last year, that seems like a lot to me.
Well, he doesn't have injury history.
DeAndre Swift, yeah, he does. He had a whole year in Detroit that he missed with injury.
Refresh me, John.
I have to double check his games
Refresh me
played,
on
but
that.
I'm pretty sure in Detroit he had almost 2 years where he barely played.
Then I'm mistaken on that.
Let me look it up. Hold on. Maybe I'm wrong. But I thought I remembered that. Let me look at his numbers.
That is
here.
possible.
So in Detroit, you could be right. Let me see. 13 games, 14 games. So he missed 3 games in 2 years and 3 games in another year. So that's where he was.
That's more on the minor side than significant.
That would be more on the minor side. That's correct.
So to be honest, what is the component of the equation where a GM, an owner, head coach, sits down and says, all right, when we're going to pay big money for a free agent, how heavy is that component in terms of availability? I would think it's a heavy one. But for some teams, maybe it's not. For example, let's just say with Saquon Barkley, There are people out there who think there's going to be a team that's going to open up Fort Knox for Saquon Barkley because they believe in his talent, and they're not going to put as much weight on the availability quotient. Now,
Well, what does Fort Knox mean? Let me ask them. Like, what does
Fort
that mean?
Knox, I think Fort Knox in a situation like this is 12.
I
That's a big number for a running back today.
I agree with that.
So is there a team that's going to pay him 12 plus a year? That's big money. And are they going to do that because they strictly look at his talent and kind of ignore the fact that he has had durability issues? That's where that wild card team comes in that might bowl him over with a big deal. That's how I see it. It's got to be a team that is willing to downplay the durability and strictly look at his skill set. That's the only way you offer him that kind of money.
Yeah, I buy that.
Right? And I don't know how many teams around the league feel that way. And then, of course, in some cases, John, that could be position specific. Some teams may feel, okay, the durability is a bigger deal for certain positions, and it's not for others.
Now, Adam Schefter pointing out that of that $24 million in the Swift deal, only 15 of that is guaranteed.
Over 3 years, is it?
3 years, yes.
3, okay.
So we'll see. That might be more of a 2-year, $15 million type of contract.
Right.
Depending on how it's structured.
Which
so,
then would come into a realistic 7.5 a year for the first two, which then makes him cuttable.
correct. So that's just looking at the base numbers. That's how I would kind of think that might go here.
He's a good back, but he's clearly on a tier below the top guys.
The other big piece of news, by the way, that came down is that the 49ers released Eric Armstead.
Yeah.
They were unable to figure out a contract negotiation. He's a guy now that joins Christian Wilkins at the top of that defensive tackle market. Those guys are going to get paid.
He's a really good player.
Both of them are.
Yeah, no question. And that's a number that everybody's going to be looking at around the league because you're right. He and Wilkins are going to be 1 and 2, 2 and 1. That's it.
Yeah. Top wide receiver in the market, Calvin Ridley, Jeremy Fowler, tweeting the Jaguars and Patriots expected to make pushes for him. Titans and Panthers also could be in the wide receiver market. Let's see what we got here. Diana Rossini from The Athletic. We should have her on the Giants Huddle podcast next couple weeks. Safety Xavier McKinney is a top target for the Packers and the Eagles in free agency, according to Diana there.
Oh, yeah, by the way, we should mention Byard got signed.
Yes, that's right.
And we were thinking that potentially because of the Titans connection to Shane Bowen, there may or may not be an interest from the Giants there, but that's no longer the case. Byard got scapped up.
All right, so let's open up the phones, guys. If you want to give us a call, you can at 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513, hashtag Giants Chat. And I do find it interesting, Paul, because I had this discussion with Joe Corey on the Giants Huddle podcast on Friday, then again with Pat Kerwin over the weekend on the Giants Huddle podcast we put up. Guys, if you want a free agent primer, you have the agent perspective and the GM perspective with those two great conversations. Make sure you go check them out on the Giants Huddle podcast. That the market, they thought for the running backs to move quickly, because the way I described it, and they both agreed with me, it's like when you're playing musical chairs, right? And you usually have 5 kids walking around in a circle with only 4 chairs in the middle. And then, everyone tries to sit and one kid has to go out. The problem with the running back position, you got about 8 guys going around in a circle and about 3 chairs. So the thought is that the minute you get a good deal, you're taking it, because you don't want to be left without teams that are interested in paying running backs.
Right.
Because then you really got to take a shave. So I'm honestly fairly surprised that the first guy off the board wasn't one of the elite guys, like the Barkleys or the Jacobs or the Henrys or
I
the
concur.
Ekelers.
I thought that would happen too.
I thought the top guys would be the first guys off. I wonder if the Bears talked to the top guys and their numbers were just too high for them. And they're like, we can't go there. So, which, by the way, wouldn't be surprising. Teams don't want to go into 8 figures for running backs. I get it. And I wonder if that's why Swift was the first off the board. And, by the way, smart by DeAndre Swift. If you're DeAndre Swift and you see all the other names at the running back position and you could be the first off the board and you get a good number like that, take it and run.
Consider the fact, I'm looking at his number now, at 25 years old, his price on the average cap value per year with the Eagles last year was only $2.1 million. Think about that.
Well, he was on his rookie deal. So
Right. So he just got himself in what we would consider prime years. He got himself over triple a raise. That's good. That's good. And maybe he just said, you know what? I like this deal. There's no sense in shopping around. I like it.
Ryan, the Bears are an up-and-coming team. They're improving. They're a better football team. They're going to have the first pick in the draft. They have a second top 10 pick in the draft as well. They're set up very well, and they have a lot of cap space too. So we can go through, Paul, quick. If you want to do it this way, we can go through some of the teams that have the most cap space that could be really active. Just the teams that fans, rather, can have an idea of who has a lot of money to spend here. The Commanders have nearly $100 million in cap space. And again, this is total cap space. This isn't necessarily what their effective usable cap space is.
By the way, the Commanders have 6 members of their starting defense from the end of last year who are unrestricted free agents.
And that's after trading Montez Sweat and Chase Young.
Correct.
So they probably have like 3 guys left.
So to be frank with you, I don't know how many free agents they want to bring back, but I think 3/5 of their starting offensive line that ended the year are unrestricted free agents. So that's at least 9 starters right there.
Kendall Fuller, Cameron Curl, those are the 2 best secondary players. They're free agents, so yeah.
They're going to have to allocate some money to re-signs. So that number is going to be deceiving.
So the Commanders have a lot of money. The Titans have a lot of money. The Patriots have a lot of money. The Texans have a lot of money. The Bears have a lot of money. The Bengals have a lot of money, but they're not usually a huge free agency team.
Not usually.
Maybe one guy they could add. Remember, they have the T. Higgins thing they're dealing with too.
Yeah.
And then eventually they get to pay Jamar Chase and things like that. So they're managing their money carefully. The Seahawks have a good amount of money. The Cardinals have a good amount of money. The Lions have a good amount of money. That's a team to keep an eye on for a splash move, I think. They got to the NFC title game. Try to add a big piece. I could see them trying to really help their defense over the course of this free agency period. So keep an eye on that. The Indianapolis Colts have a good amount of money. The Giants, they are number 11 here according to Spot Track. Again, 41 is the number people are throwing around. That's the total. But again, the usable is going to be a little bit less than that, probably closer to 30. Just FYI, because you want to save money for your expenditures during the year and then for the draft. So figure that'll probably come in around 30 for their usual cap space, give or take. Raiders have a lot. Falcons have a lot. So there are a lot of teams that have money to spend here, folks. So just something to keep an eye on as you move forward here. And free agency continues as we keep track of it right here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. The other interesting thing to me here, Paul, we talked about the running back spot. The safety position is very similar, right? You have a situation where there's a lot of guys that got cut loose last week. Good starting caliber players. These are older guys that would probably be shorter term deals. But again, it just saturates the market to such an extent that I don't know how big these safety contracts are going to be, because the team's going to go out there and going to say, all right, well, if I don't want to pay this guy $12 million, I'll go sign, Jordan Whitehead for $6 million, and you can plug him in. It'll be a good starter for you. So there's just so many safeties out there that I think that's going to be a challenge for those guys finding deals the same way it will be at running back.
Well, based on the free agent list that Over the Cap has put out, it's amazing when you look at the highest paid safeties who were set free. Well, right off the bat, immediately, like 8 of the top 9 guys are all over 30 years old.
Yeah.
See, now that is going to impact that market even more so than the amount of guys who are out there. Because as we both know, John, there's that phobia about guys after they get to 30.
That's the 1 or 2 year stopgap contract.
That's it.
Now, 30-31 isn't too bad. It's not like you're signing Antoine Bethea like the Giants did when he was like 34. Right?
Yeah.
That's a little bit different.
Yeah.
That you're well past. At 31, you can still be in your prime and be a really good player.
Still possible.
But you're getting towards the end.
And there's no doubt that teams are going to be a little more queasy about it.
Yeah.
And they're not going to give you the kind of numbers you want either. They're going to give you some more incentives maybe as opposed to guarantees.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think that's fair. But that'll be interesting to keep an eye on how that safety market goes. My guess is that that's going to be slow moving, and there's going to be a lot of safeties in that second wave of free agency.
I would agree with that.
Begins next week.
Yeah.
Which I think will be fun.
Because it's going to be, look, this is the leftover money we have. Take it or leave it. That's what's going to happen with the safeties.
And I think early these guys will jump at contracts the same way I talked about with the running backs, just because there's so many guys. You don't want to be that kid left without a chair and they give him a musical chair, because then things can get ugly. The big name, Paul, that I think is going to guide a lot of this stuff is Kirk Cousins. He's a free agent. He's the big quarterback on the market. The two teams that are being mentioned heavily with him are the Minnesota Vikings,
Of course.
who seem to really want him back. Kevin O'Connell and him seem to really bond. Kirk Cousins was, frankly, playing his best football, really high-level football, before he got hurt this year. Was he an ACL or an Achilles? I'm trying to remember.
I don't remember.
Well,
I
whichever
thought it was,
one.
I thought it was an
an
Achilles.
ACL. Okay,
Was it?
maybe it was an Achilles.
I don't remember.
Pearson looked that up for me, which one it was. And he'll be back. He'll be good to go at the start of the year. But the Vikings really wanted
Rodgers
him back.
was the Achilles.
Yes.
Yes.
They really wanted him back. But the Falcons, as we've discussed here many times when it comes to the draft.
It was Achilles.
Achilles, thank you, Pearson. Are
Both.
desperate for a quarterback. They do not have anyone on their roster they could believe can be a starting quarterback in the National Football League right now.
John.
So they are going to go heavy after Kirk Cousins, and I think no one knows how to work the business side of the quarterback position better than Kirk Cousins. He's phenomenal at it, and it would not shock me if he walks away from this deal with a 4-year completely guaranteed contract, even at age 34 or 35.
The two riverboat gamblers who have absolutely hit pay dirt time after time after time, Kirk Cousins and Darrelle Revis. If you remember, he did the same thing, the corner from the Jets and the Patriots and the Chiefs, and he played that hand to perfection year after year after year, and he cashed in so much more than he would have otherwise. And Cousins is really doing the same thing. And it's amazing. Most guys won't even take a chance to do it that way, but these guys have succeeded with a very unpopular method of betting on themselves. Now, the one point here, John, that I want to add.
And by the way, talk about, we joke about this. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
That's all right.
I talked about this in the last week, right? So the risk of betting on yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always, I'm going to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't have the long-term deal.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what happened to Kirk Cousins this year?
He got hurt, and he's still going to get a deal.
A monster deal.
Yes.
So for a position like quarterback, I think that pathway makes sense, to be honest with you. Unless you get like a shoulder injury, which is really the only thing that can finish you. Just look at Carson Palmer when he started having those elbow and shoulder issues, and that kind of messed up his career a little bit. But otherwise, like teams like just shrug their shoulders at ACLs and Achilles now. And they're like, all right, 34-year-old quarterback Achilles tendon injury. All right, we'll still give you $40 million a year guaranteed. It's just crazy the way it works now. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, the question becomes, as we discuss Kirk Cousins being the, quote, big fish in this free agent pool, it really is, where is Justin Fields going? Because the Bears have put this starting caliber quarterback on the open market. They've made it very clear that they'd like to make a move. And if they do, that's one less quarterback suitor that comes off the board in regards to Cousins. And obviously Russell Wilson, he's supposedly agreed to a deal now with the Steelers. So that's out of the mix. But all these other quarterback-needy teams who we believe now are going to be in the market to potentially trade up or take a quarterback in the top 3. The Fields thing is still a very big component.
It is. I agree with you. And I think the Fields thing is interesting. I don't know how you feel about Fields. He's a guy
I think he's okay.
That he's like a pretty good quarterback,
He's
right?
okay.
Like I would say he's an average quarterback right now with
Sure.
a chance to continue to get better.
To get better, yeah. To get better than better than half.
You could still have him on
He could.
his last year of his rookie deal plus the 5th-year option if you want him.
Mm-hmm.
So you still have 2 years of control on him if you want at reasonable money over 2 years for a quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm honestly surprised the Bears haven't found the team that's willing to give a second-round pick up for him.
If that's the price, I would agree with you. I wonder if that's really the price, though.
I'm hearing that they have not been able to get that. Which
This
seems
is
crazy to
the
me.
rumor. The rumor is nobody wants to spit out a number 2 for him. And folks, look at the quarterbacks that are supposed to be in the first round of this draft, and then go to that second tier of guys, right? Now, I'm a Bo Nix guy, but I think he's late first round. I don't think he gets to the second round. So if you believe that, right?
So you think 6 quarterbacks are going in the first round, or do you think Penix will get to the second round?
I think Penix is going to drop. I think Penix may even drop to the 3rd or 4th round.
I'd be surprised by that, but okay.
Talent-wise, you're right. I think there are too many people who are going to be like, and too few people who need quarterbacks. And too many of them.
There are too many teams that need quarterbacks.
But too many of the ones who need a starter are going to be scared off by his injuries.
Okay. I think they'd be willing to roll the dice on that second round.
Maybe.
But we'll see. Who knows?
Point is,
Yes.
Fields or Penix in the second round? I'd rather have Fields.
Yeah, I would too.
That's a no-brainer
I'd
to me.
I'd rather have Fields than Knicks.
Because talent-wise...
I know you're a bigger Knicks guy than me. I'd rather have Fields than Knicks too.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Point being, at the very least, whether you think it's Knicks or whether you think it's Penix, those are the guys who might be there at the top of the second round. Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Would you rather have Fields than either one of them? I would rather have Knicks. You wouldn't. That's okay. I would certainly take Fields over Penix, though, and that is a no-brainer for me.
Yeah. All right, we got a contract extension for Bills offensive tackle Dion Dawkins, 3 years, $60 million, according to Adam Schefter.
360, huh? That's
Yep.
20 a pop, but of course, I'm sure there'll be some machinations involved.
I mean, he's a starting offensive tackle. I think that's a pretty solid deal. I think that's a good extension. And then Dion Dawkins tweets, "Y'all are cray. Why would I ever leave Buffalo? I'm never leaving, guy. I'm Buffalo for life." And then 3 snowflakes on the emojis. It's pretty good.
That's very good.
And I hope to God that is the first and last time I will use the word cray in my life. Please, God, don't make me read a tweet
Well,
like that
the
again.
good news for him is
Do you know what that means, cray?
No, I don't.
It's short. Because apparently crazy is too long of a word for people to say, so they have to say cray.
Okay.
Anyway.
Whatever. My point was he now has enough money to buy a snowplow.
I think he already did, to be honest with you. But yes, now we can get the second snow plow.
Okay.
Which will be good. All right, guys, we had a special bonus half hour. Now we got one more hour to go here on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Haven't had a ton of news. Usually in this first half hour, Paul,
we never talked
you get
about
a bunch
that.
of stuff going here. Oh, I did not see that.
We
Go
never
ahead.
talked about that.
Go ahead.
Fletcher Cox announced his retirement after 12 years with the Eagles.
I did not see that.
6 Pro Bowl votes. Truly, in my opinion, a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I think he's a Hall of Famer for sure.
And just absolutely wreaked havoc on the Giants for years and years and years. I believe actually that announcement came out yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
I totally missed that one.
And look, when guys like that and Kelsey decide they want to hang it up, I'll just smile, wave, and say, guys, you've been great for the NFL. All the best of luck to you. That's fine. Have a wonderful,
It
wonderful
reminds me of the old fable. What
second
is it?
career.
Somebody takes the thorn out of the paw of like the dragon or the bear or something like that, and then the bear, they become friendly, they become friends. Like it's basically that.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Him retiring is like taking a huge thorn out of the paws of Giant fans.
Oh
everywhere.
my goodness,
Oh, my gosh.
that
He's so good.
that dude was just an absolute monster.
Two-way player, played the run and the pass.
Did it all.
You never had any issues with him off the field, as far as I can remember.
For his
Great player.
For his collection of guys who played the last 12 years in the league, outside of Aaron Donald, there's not another defensive tackle I'd want on my team. Aaron Donald, of course, is a special guy, but Cox, no, I'll anytime.
He is right in the next tier.
He's
of
right
guys.
there. He's
That's
right
for
there.
Sure, 100% agree. All right, let's get to the calls here, guys. 201-939-4513. 201-939-4513. Don't forget, guys, go check out the Giants Huddle podcast. 2 great ones up there right now. Joe Corey, former NFL agent. That's 2 episodes ago, and then the most recent one is Pat Kerwin, former NFL general manager, now at Sirius XM NFL Radio. We really do a full breakdown of free agency from a GM's and an agent's perspective. 2 great episodes. Go check them out. You can find the Giants Huddle podcast presented by Citizens on your favorite podcast platform, or go to giants.com/podcast and find it there. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's go to James in Georgia. He'll lead us off today. Hi, James.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
Get off your speakerphone, James.
All right. I was in the car with Barkley. Let me see. What I can do.
In the car. Okay.
Yeah. Literally in the car with, now let's do that.
Don't get a ticket, by the way.
All right. Look, I'm in Georgia where you can't drive with the phone in your hand, but
Exactly.
so with the free agency period getting ready to start, that's a couple of things. The Baker Mayfield contract makes Daniel Jones' contract look crazy since they're pretty much the same player at this point. They have damn near the same resume.
Well, James, so hold on. Baker Mayfield's contract was 3 years, $115 million, right?
Uh-huh.
So that's how many $1 million a year? About 38, right?
Okay.
You know what Daniel Jones' contract was for over 3 years?
$7 million more?
No, it was about a 3-year, $38 million per year contract.
It's very similar.
And then all the extra money's in the fourth year.
Right.
Which you can get out of because it's not guaranteed.
So it's the overall value or worth of the deal is very close.
Now, if you take the incentives out of Baker's is less. But
Right.
if he meets his incentives, their money out in about 3 years will be almost the same.
So, now, almost the same. So in these next 2 years, is he not getting paid any more than what Baker is going to get?
I mean,
like $1 million more, $2 million more.
Well, Well, each year has incentives in it, so that could fluctuate. But the point is, Baker signed this deal right now off of a career year. Daniel also signed his deal off of a career year. Correct. So that's the other thing you have to do. You have to put it into context with the timing of when the player signed. And these guys are signing comparable contracts off of career years. I don't see any crime in that.
It was a career year, but it wasn't a great year. He only had 15 touchdowns thrown. That's all. It wasn't a great year for him to get all the money that Shane gave him.
James, we're in the middle of free agency. Can we not relitigate the Daniel Jones contract today, please?
All right. Let's move on to Michael Penix. And why are you so off on him, Paul?
4 seasons of injury riddled and season-ending injuries. It makes him absolutely undraftable for me, period.
I mean, a couple of guys from, reported on that a lot of teams have cleared him of his medical stuff.
That's okay.
And they're good with it.
Sure, and then let those folks draft him. I'd rather trade for Justin Fields. I'd rather trade for Justin Fields.
I would too at this point.
Okay, so we agree.
Because
you can't pay 2 quarterbacks at the same time. All right.
Exactly. And you still let's give Daniel Jones a shot with his injury pass.
Yes.
Well, he's already under contract, James. You aren't making that decision right now.
The commitment's already been made, so you have to give him a shot. And in terms of trading for Justin Fields, my comment to you about Justin Fields is I'm not saying the Giants should trade for Justin Fields. I'm saying if I was a team out there needing a quarterback, and I don't believe the Giants do, I would certainly rather have Fields than Penix. Let me make that clear. So maybe we don't agree.
Right. Because I don't know how we would go with Daniel Jones's history and his neck, and you think that Michael Penix injury history.
All right, here's the problem. Jones is already, you've committed your resources to him, so that makes it a totally different equation. Secondly, you're looking at a college player who's already been littered with injuries before he ever set foot on an NFL field. So now his injury buildup or his cumulative injury effect is already far beyond anything that Daniel Jones experienced with the Giants, because he started his injury issues more so after he got here. He did have one injury at Duke that was of significance, but Penix has had 4. Makes a big difference.
And now him and Jones are both at 4, and Penix was totally healthy last year. And the significance of the injuries, one leg, I'd rather take a guy on one leg than that doesn't have a neck.
James, why are we having timeout, James? Free agency's just starting. Why are we having a theoretical conversation of Michael Penix versus Daniel Jones, which is irrelevant to anything that's going on?
Yeah, we're going to bring up trading for Justin Fields, too, but Paul doesn't want Justin Fields, so me saying
Did you just not
opinion,
hear what Paul Dottino said, James? Goodbye. I can't. You're not even listening to what Paul's saying. He literally said he would take Justin Fields instead of Michael Penix. Come on, man. Got to bring your A game. Free agency starting today. Come on, man.
Wow.
Jeez, you're all over the place.
Yeah. Look.
All over the place, James. You got to focus in here. Come on.
Look, if you want to talk about the Giants quarterback situation, what you want to do with free agency now upon us, you could talk about maybe a veteran free agent who they might be considering in the mix, whether that or not they draft one. That you could think about. And obviously Russell Wilson is not in the mix anymore because he's going to the Steelers. Do you want to think about some of the other lesser veteran names who are out there? You could talk about that if you like. That's a free agent conversation.
It's just that the choice isn't Michael Penix versus Daniel Jones.
No, it's not.
That's literally
It's not
a conversation you can have.
That is not.
And by the way, I'm open if you want to draft Michael Penix in the second round and roll the dice on him as a guy you think you could develop. I'm fine with that personally. But this is not the day when free agency is starting to have that conversation about a draft in the second round.
Nope.
That's not the day to have the conversation. Let's go to Wilson in Roxbury. He's up next. Wilson, what's going on, brother?
Hey, Johnny, Paulie. Johnny, listen. Remember you told me about a stiff drink? I think you need a stiff drink today.
No, Wilson, I'm in a great mood, but that call was all over the place. Am I wrong?
No, I know. That guy, I heard that guy talk about Michael Penix 2 months ago. I mean, geez. All right, whatever. Listen, forget about that. All right, let me focus because I'm all out of whack too.
Jonathan Greenard to the Vikings, by the way. NFL Network just broke that item.
Do they have numbers on that?
They did not put numbers
let me
out.
see if I can get numbers.
So that's one pass rusher gone.
And by the way, just real quick, Wilson, I just want to make sure I have the facts absolutely right for the previous call. Baker is $30 million base this year with up to $5 million incentives. $30 million next year, up to $5 million in incentives, and then $40 the final year. That's how you get to $110 for him, which is an average of about $37 million a year. And again, through the first 3 years of Jones's contract, it's between 37 and 38. We did all this math over the course of the last 2 years. So the incentives make it really close. If Baker doesn't hit the incentives, it's not as big. So is the contract a bit smaller? Yes. Is it this like eye-poppingly, shockingly number smaller? No, it is not. And I'll leave it at that. Go ahead, Wilson. Wilson, I'm sorry for interrupting you. Go ahead.
On Baker Mayfield's real quickly. You just brought it up. You know what? It's right time at the right time. I mean, if Baker Mayfield played for the Giants last year, I think he would have been in the hospital. Forget about getting hurt. But he played in the worst division in the NFL, and that's what happens. You got to be at the right time and the right place.
No, Wilson, here's what they did. I'm sure this was a negotiation. I'm sure Baker went to the Bucs and said, "I want the Daniel Jones contract." The Bucs said, "No, we want to give you the Geno Smith contract." And you know what they did? They found this thing in between the Geno Smith contract and the Daniel Jones contract, and that's where they landed.
Wilson, you just happened without even realizing it. You just hit the head on the pin. Timing. Timing is always the biggest factor in free agency.
And the right place too, Paulie. I mean,
no doubt.
I mean, you put Daniel Jones and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he would have won the division by 5 games.
There you go.
Daniel Jones is a much better player than Baker Mayfield.
What do you got for us?
All right. Listen, why is Darren Waller on the team? I mean, why bother? Why bother Darren Waller on the team? I mean, we took a flyer last year. I mean, he's been hurt forever, and now he's contemplating retirement. I don't know if there's a way, if Joe Schoen is waiting to cut him because he saved some money before or after. I don't know the details.
Now, Wilson, I would say, and Wilson,
a player like that, Paulie and John, a player like that that's been hurt forever. And he's contemplating retirement. He's done. He's over.
The only thing I was going to say is if the Giants were going to let him loose, that probably would have happened by now.
You would think so.
Yes,
I believe Joe.
That was all I was going to say.
I think Joe Schoen has already said the intention is to bring him back if he wants to play.
Yes, that's correct.
So, and here's the other thing, Wilson. They do have a commitment from him. It's always easier to keep a guy when you already have a signed contract.
Right, and your cap savings are not minimal, but they aren't huge if you decide to let him go.
All right, but forget about the money real quick. When a player that injured, the history has been injured forever, Johnny, he's done. Wait, he's going to find a spark in the summer? I mean, I don't know. And listen, and Daniel Jones, to me, it's a waste. I mean, it's a waste because he's not gonna. When you're like that old and you have all those injury history and you say, well, I want to retire, you're done as a player. You've been watching football forever, and you do, John. I mean, what is he gonna find a spark here?
So free agency starts today, and we get 2 calls who want to talk about guys under contract. How do you figure that, John? I mean, Wilson, you've got like how many months in the offseason to complain about these guys, and you want to do this today? Seriously.
I'm not complaining, but I'm just saying because I read about it today, Paulie. I read about it that he was contemplating retirement. I said,
okay. Thanks, Wilson.
One thing on Daniel Jones because Paulie. unlike you, there's nothing else to do during this time except read crazy stuff on the internet and on the radio and whatever. Paulie, there's nothing else to do.
I got you.
And if I'm Daniel Jones.
Hence why the off season is miserable. Okay, this is why I don't like the off season. Go ahead.
Okay, Paulie, listen, because I know you don't believe that, but I kind of do. I said, nobody just wakes up out of nowhere and just makes stuff up. There's something there, and people write stuff because they hear stuff, whatever. I'm just saying this. If I'm Daniel Jones, and I love Daniel. I think Daniel it's a franchise quarterback. But if I'm him, right, and I hear all this stuff, well, maybe going to be here for just a year, and I don't know, and might draft a quarterback. And the other day I was talking to John that maybe if they draft a quarterback, Daniel will start, but he doesn't know if by the end of the year, Daniel will still be the starter. If I'm Daniel Jones, why am I going to bust my butt and try to come back and do everything right by the team when there's a 70% chance that they're just going to throw me out the following year? I mean, it just makes no sense.
Well, I
Everything
mean,
that's going
if
on
Wilson, he has a career he's trying to continue.
Correct.
You know what I mean, if he plays really well this year and is awesome,
they'll keep him.
They aren't just going to eject him, right? You know what I'm saying? So he's and even if the Giants do eject him, then he's playing really well for his next contract. So he has all the motivation in the world to go out there and have his best year of football.
He's a competitor.
But Johnny, listen, I said this last week to you. The Giants are not in the position to get a draft in the 6th overall pick and have him sit for a year. We need a player. We need a player that's going to make a difference right away. I think, you know what I think?
Hence why I'm drafting Odunze, okay?
Me too. But Paulie, but you don't know that. You don't know what's in Jones. Paulie, let me ask you something, because I asked to do this here. If Joe Shane drafts the quarterback with the 6th overall pick, I don't know if you can say that on the air because you work over there. Is that a mistake? Yes or no? Answer me truthfully.
Well, it depends on who it is. No, seriously. If one of the top 3 guys falls to him, you could make a logical case for taking one. If one of the top 3 doesn't fall to him, there's no point in having a conversation. None.
Okay, I'll buy that. But then I want him to start. Forget about day one. I want him to start in the preseason. Then you said Daniel Jones. Okay, you think the Giants are in the position to actually draft
Wilson. I don't want to start the quarterback
draft.
I appreciate it, guys.
Stuff.
Free agency starting today. Can we please talk about free agency?
I know.
Holy cow! Please, I'm begging you.
My goodness.
Jonathan Greenard to the Vikings, as Paul mentioned, 4 years, $76 million. That's $19 a year for Greenard.
Isn't that the number I said to you?
That's a really big number. And then Ian Rappaport reporting, though KPRC in Houston had it first, that looks like they're going to sign Tony Pollard to a 3-year deal worth $24 million, about $8 million a year.
Okay, and again, that means the guarantee is going to be less than that. So we're now starting to see what the market is for running backs after 2 guys signed.
I would have
agreed
that Pollard would have gotten a bigger contract than Swift. That's surprising to me.
Yeah. Although, again, Swift never had a significant injury. Pollard has.
He did. He did come back last year and played all the games. But
This
yes,
goes into that. Where do you weigh it?
You're right.
Where do you weigh it?
Fair point. So some stuff's starting to get reported now. Again, all these reported deals, folks, just to emphasize this, guys have to go in, take physicals, sign on the dotted line. These are all just agreed to term situations for these other teams, and so far it's been quiet on the Giants front. 201-939-4513, 201-939-4513.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, sure.
You're going to hate me for this.
Oh, boy.
No, but it's a free agency question.
Okay, I'm good with that then.
Okay.
I got a full line of calls, so let's make it quick.
It's a real quick one. If you're the Giants and you are interested in a veteran insurance policy quarterback in free agency, Mason Rudolph is now going to be set free, it looks like, by the Steelers because they're going for Russell Wilson. He won 3 games down the stretch and got them into the playoffs.
There are other guys I like better.
Would you consider him, though? I probably would think about it.
Would I consider him? Yes. Would he be more of a fallback position for me? Absolutely.
Agreed. I also don't think you necessarily have to break the bank
together. There are good 4 or 5 guys that I'd want before him.
And that's fine. I'm also thinking economically, though, he probably would be very friendly.
No, I agree with that. I think that's fair. I think that's a good name. If nothing happens earlier this week and you start getting into week 3 and 4 of this and week 2 and 3 and 4, then that's a name you could probably start having a conversation about.
So you're not mad at me.
I'd rather have Tyrod.
I didn't say no. I just don't know if Tyrod is of the feeling to come back.
I don't know either. Let's go to Hugo in New Jersey. He's up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hugo, what's going on?
Hey, good afternoon, guys.
Hi.
Hey, John, you answered one question through your work in the off season for me, because I was thinking about the Giants' weakness against the run last year. And one of the things I learned from you through your interviews this off season, that is, if you have one weakness on defense, it gets exploited. So even though we have Dexter and signed 2 run stuffers and Bukarake and Kayvon improved against the run, if an edge is weak against the run and your secondary doesn't support the run, you're going to get exploited on the run, which leads me to a little bit of a strategic comment. As I think about the draft versus free agency, I see the draft being stronger on offense as opposed to defense.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Corner and edge, corner especially,
really good.
is very deep in the draft. So you can find corners in the draft on day 2 and 3.
Corner is. I would admit that.
Yes.
So as I think about free agency, I would be very focused on defense, although obviously the Giants will be signing or should be signing people on the offensive line just because of the issues the Giants have there. But one of the positions we haven't, in the past, I've talked about edge and 3 technique, kind of a secondary priority for me, just because value seems to line up in free agency, is off-ball linebacker and slot corner. And I would like to get a slot corner that can support the run, because I thought that was a weakness last year, and I would like to see Cordell Flott move to the outside, because I just think he's more natural there. And also, Micah McFadden, he was okay last year, but I think our expectations are kind of low for that position just because we've seen such bad linebacker play. I wouldn't mind signing someone and having Micah more as a depth player.
You're already paying a inside linebacker. I don't know if I can, with all the other needs, Hugo, I would consider that more of a luxury. I'm not sure I'd make that a priority. You know what I'm saying?
Can't put the money there. Can't do it.
But John, you could get such good players around $7 to $8 million in free agencies. Guys like Willie Gay Jr., Josie Jewell. I don't know.
If you want to go on the lower end and sign somebody to give you some veteran depth behind them, that's great. But I would not. For me personally, I wouldn't approach the $7 to $8 million a year level for a second inside linebacker.
Can't do it.
I can't do it.
Can't do it. I'm with you on that, John. And I will say this. I'll agree with you on one thing. I've always said I think Flott's a better boundary corner than he is a slot. I honestly believe that. I like his length. I like his stick-to-itiveness, and I like the way he can use the sideline. I agree with you. I think he's a better boundary. But as we all know, the reports about Darius Williams coming to visit the Giants, which, we can't confirm or otherwise, but we know about those reports. That's a veteran guy who has done some good things on the boundary.
Just 5'9", but he actually played outside a lot more than he's played in the
early in his career, he was a slot, and it didn't work out well. And they found out he was better outside.
2 years ago, he played a little bit in the slot, but he wasn't as good again as he was when he played outside.
Okay. Well, we can't get a stud 3 technique. A mid-level 3 technique and another off-ball linebacker, I think, or one way to skin the cat without spending on the Christian Wilkins type. But that's me. We'll see what happens.
Diana Rossini reporting the Dallas Cowboys were in on running back Tony Pollard. Also, the Giants and Vikings had their eye on him too. Again, we can't confirm that, just reading the report. He took the bigger payday with Tennessee per sources. So that's interesting. But again, 2 running backs off the board early, but maybe not the 2 that we thought would be off the board.
Why would he not go back to Dallas? I guess maybe Jerry Jones just couldn't come up with the scratch.
Well, Dallas is up against the cap-wise.
They are.
Look, when you're a good team and you spend and you try to win, and look, they've had successful regular seasons. It's worked. They just haven't been able to get it done in the playoffs. They've won 12 games, a bunch of years in a row. So it is what it is.
They do value running the ball, though, behind that big offensive line. They're one of the teams that understands the running game is important.
Yeah, we'll see where they decide to go now, running back in Dallas. So both the Eagles and the Cowboys now will have new starting running backs in 2023. We'll see who they are in the Giants division. Brian Robinson appears that he'll be back in Washington. Antonio Gibson, their other running back,
he's on his way out,
agent
apparently,
in Washington. So something to keep an eye on. All right, 201-939-4513. Let's go to Len in Columbia, Maryland. He's up next. Hi, Len.
Hey, guys. How you doing?
What's going on?
Hi.
Good. Well, exciting time of the year for sure. This is when we supposedly get better. We get this short window between this and the draft. I guess about 8 weeks now, and this is our opportunity.
I would say, Len, it's as much about getting better as it is filling holes. So when you get to the draft, you're not enslaved to needs, and you can just pick the best player, ideally. You know what I mean?
But we got to fill the holes with some better people.
Oh, of course.
I guess is where I'm starting with.
Sure.
Now, let me see if I got this right. Pollard back to the Cowboys is the rumor. Is that what you said?
No.
Titans.
Titans. He's leaving Dallas, going to Tennessee.
Wow, that's the.
Well, that means Derrick Henry's going somewhere else.
Well,
it's just. Well, that's got to be just. That's got to be just a rumor, right? I mean, it's not.
No, it's being reported.
Well, he can't do that. He can't do it until Wednesday.
No. Len, these teams come to agreements on offer sheets, and then it becomes official when they come in and do a and do a physical on Wednesday. But more often than not, these deals do hold. There are times when guys can pull back and change their mind, or they fail a physical. But more often than not, when these guys agree to terms, they're going to go through.
See, remember something, Len, and if you don't believe me, Mike Florio posted a tweet earlier in the week explaining exactly how this gets done. The agents want to brag immediately about the guy that they get a deal with. Geez. So what happens is the 2-day talking period, they have the national beat reporters on speed dial and or on multiple text. And as soon as they shake hands or verbally agree to a deal with a team, they hit that button and it immediately gets out. So that's just the way it works.
Okay. All right. That's how it works. So much for dates. I mean, because I was going to start out my conversation with you by saying it looks like all of the signings to date are people re-upping with the team that they were with. I mean, the Dawkins deal, the Dickerson deal. They're all with the teams that they were with. And the point I was going to try to make to start off the conversation was that, with the kind of money we're talking about here, that these teams are throwing at their free agents, their own free agents. Talk is cheap. It takes money to buy whiskey, guys.
Yeah, look, absolutely, man. That's the way it goes, for sure.
I mean, you're gonna, especially if you're gonna go top shelf. I mean, you're gonna have to spend money.
And by the way, for the record, Len, just so you and the fans understand, if you're re-signing your own player, that can get done before Wednesday.
Yes.
Well, that's what I thought, and I'm really kind of disappointed that the Pollard deal gets announced because, I mean, come on, play by the damn rules, for God's sake.
But they are playing by the rules.
Yeah, God.
No, they are.
Anyway. Well,
they're allowed to say we've agreed to a deal. Not the teams, but the agents are allowed to say we've agreed to a deal with a team. They can do that.
All right. That was not my understanding, Paul. But okay, let me move on.
Yeah.
John, I want to ask you my Linville Joseph question.
Okay.
You might remember it.
Pittman and the Colts have just agreed, by the way, according to NFL Network, just so you know.
Yeah, before we had
that. Oh, did we say that?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Go ahead, Len.
Who was the last one? John, I'm sorry.
Michael Pittman re-upping with the Colts.
Yeah, that one. Oh, my God.
Well, they just flashed that on NFL. Whatever. Go ahead.
Oh, my goodness. Can you imagine that kind of money? That's unbelievable. Okay, let me move on. I'm going to ask you my Linville Joseph question. Do you remember my Linville Joseph question when he was about to leave? What hasn't McKinney done that the Giants wanted him to do that they're going to let him go in free agency? What hasn't this guy I just can't figure out what they want from these players.
Well, in fairness, McKinney did have an off-the-field injury issue last year, and then he also had a huge issue this year with, saying things he probably shouldn't be saying.
And his play on the field, if you want to be really fair, has been inconsistent over his Giants career.
Now, he had a great – his last year was very, very strong, especially
second half was sensational.
Phenomenal.
His first half of last season was not nearly as sensational.
I don't want to get into here's what he did, but it appears to me that we're looking for reasons. We're looking for reasons not to sign
Len. Here's the basis of it.
Okay.
Can you get a guy for half the price that's 80% of the player? That's the question. Can you literally get a guy for half the price that'll give you 80% of the production?
That's great. You pay 50% and get 80%. That's known as good value.
That's the question. That's the question.
Or
Well,
can you ask Dane Belton to move into that spot and not have to pay anybody?
I'm not sure.
I understand the rumors on the internet is that the number's going to be big for McKinney. There's no. I mean, it just sounds like
now
that's the
you
way it's
answered your own question, Len, and I don't mean to cut you off, but you're asking me what do you not see in McKinney?
Yeah. What do you not see?
He has said many times publicly to the press since the last couple of weeks of the season that he was going to be looking for a big number. He made that very clear that was a priority. The Giants are looking for value. They may not be looking necessarily for a big number.
Because they might want to use that big number on a position that's maybe more vital to the team winning games.
How about an offensive guard?
Bingo.
I said,
or a pass rusher.
I said this earlier in the year. It's part of my GM philosophy. You don't have to get worse before you get better.
No, but Len,
get worse.
It's
sign
opportunity
John,
cost,
if you sign that guy for less, you're not getting a better player than McKinney.
No, but what if you then spend the other $7 million on a second player?
On who? Well, look, the money is just unbelievable that's being floated around, but it's going to the best guys, and I think what it's coming down to is you pay 6 or 8 guys, and everybody else works for minimum wage. I'm exaggerating, but you get the idea. I mean, you got to pay your best players. I mean, I don't know. Why would I just don't get it with McKinney. Let me ask you a couple of housekeeping questions about our own free agents.
Absolutely.
Have we tendered our restricted free agents yet? I think we're talking Cager, McLeod. There may be one other guy. Have we tendered them, or are they on Wednesday going to be free agents?
I have not seen that yet.
I have not heard any of those guys being tendered. I don't. Okay. That doesn't mean they aren't. I just haven't heard.
I know. I thought. Well, maybe the date is the start of the new year. That we have actually to win. But I was wondering what they had did with their restricted. Now, I understand we signed Kreider. And I think we signed him because we anticipated there was going to be some demand for him. The long snapper.
Yeah.
Giants haven't announced that yet, by the way.
That's the report. That's the report.
Okay. All right. And that's probably because we've anticipated or heard through the grapevine that there were going to be some other teams, who might want to try to sign him. Of the guys that are left, forget the restricted guys and the exclusive rights free agents. I think if you combine those two, you got like 5 guys. What's your right? Who else might we be looking at? Who we'd like to bring back from our own free agents?
How about Ashawn Robinson?
It's not going to be a lot of people, but there are. I mean, do we want? I want Isaiah Simmons back.
He's a scheme player.
Yeah, I have no idea what Shane Bowen thinks of him as a player.
That's the problem. He's a scheme-specific type of player. Okay. He is a blitzer and a man-on-man covering a tight end kind of guy.
I like Ashawn Robinson as a name. I wouldn't mind having him back as a rotational defensive lineman.
Yeah, whatever.
Ashawn. Oh yeah, we got to bring. Did you say Ashawn?
Yeah,
we both did.
The question though is there enough with the way Shane Bowen plays his defense? Can you afford to pay Dexter, Ashawn, and Nacho?
Okay, let me say something about Simmons. You got
to talk to Shane Bowen.
You got to promise. You got to promise me.
Yeah,
you have to promise me.
Okay.
If we don't sign Simmons, nobody is going to mention the lack of team speed on defense as we go through this season. You can't. You can't.
Look, Len. I'm the biggest Isaiah Simmons fan going. Okay.
Yeah.
But I understand he is scheme specific. I said it from the time he came out of school. You've got to use him as a blitzer, or strictly as a cover guy in certain situations.
Well, listen,
he is not your not your standard off-ball linebacker. That's not what he does.
Well, there's nothing wrong with scheme-specific players, Paul.
Yeah, but what if your DC doesn't want to run that scheme? There's a lot wrong with that.
Okay.
John,
I get
help
that.
me out here.
No, I agree with you. I'm letting you go. But I'm with you.
All right. Now,
yes.
you see anybody else? What about the punt? I'd like to see the punt returner back.
I'd be okay with that. I think he did a really nice job.
I don't think there's
going
to be a big market for him.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that's really a question.
Well, it always comes down. It always comes down to the money. But I'm just wondering whether they really have any interest in any of those guys. Do you have a feel for it? And, well, we're starting to talk about it, and maybe you've answered my question. It wasn't going to be terribly deep.
Well, he got the minimum. He got the minimum when they claimed him. I don't necessarily know how much more than that it's going to cost to bring him back.
Yeah.
Olszewski was really good. He made a huge difference on this team.
Listen. That would be a quality signing out of our own people.
You know another guy, Len, who I'd be fine signing as a backup. If you want to bring Brent Bredesen back as your backup guard, center, swing guy, I'd be good with that.
So would I.
Let me say one thing. If we don't sign Bredesen, he's going to play in the NFL next year.
Of course,
he's
he
good
is.
enough to play. He's good enough to play in the NFL. Now I don't know if I would want, unless you're looking at him as a starter. I have this idea, John, Paul. I don't know whether you've heard me say this. I probably go back further with John than I do with you, Paul. But John, you may have heard me say in the past, I don't like former starters from your team becoming backups on your team. It doesn't work. It doesn't work.
If it makes you feel any better, Bredesen started as a backup here before he became a starter. Does that work for you?
I mean, last year he was, you get to the end of the year. I think Ben sees himself, if he was going to come back here, he sees himself as a starter.
I think that's probably true. I think that's fair.
I mean, because we saw the attitude. I think the whole thing with Glowinski mid-season, where suddenly he disappears from the team. I think Dable just said to him, Glow, you're just not going to start.
No, Len. I could tell you for sure the Glow thing where he left the team in the middle of the season, that was a family emergency deal. So that's not what that was.
Well, I'm glad to hear that, but I'm sorry to hear that if you follow what I'm saying.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, look, let's spend some money. Come on, guys, and take care of your own. Take care of your own. Hey, thanks for taking my call. It's an exciting time of year, guys.
It is.
You're doing a great job.
Thank you, Len. Appreciate it. 201-939-4513. Let's roll right into Tim in Charleston. Tim, you're up next on Big Blue Kickoff Live. Hey, buddy.
Hey, guys. How you doing? You hear me okay?
Loud and clear.
Okay. So you guys have heard from me. I've called from home. I've called from my lunch break. And I've called from the bar having a beer and a cigar. Well, this is the first time, hopefully the last time I'm calling you from the hospital.
Oh, no. You're all right, Tim? What's going on?
I've been in here 3 weeks. I got a raging staph infection in my left knee that crippled me.
Wow.
And
staph infections are no joke, dude. Take care of that, man.
Yeah, well, it's been clear for a while, but I'm on 24/7 IV for another 2 weeks.
Whew. All right.
God bless, man.
ASAP, man. Yeah, get well.
And I'm walking with a walker, which makes me feel 20 years older. But hopefully, by the time I leave, I'll be a little beyond that. Anyway, so I'm going to keep it simple to free agency, and I'm not going to go in 87 different directions. There's one specific question. Now, I'm assuming, for better or worse, and I don't want to talk about this part of it. I'm assuming that the expectation is we'll sign at least one guard. So that out of the way.
Yes,
my concern,
I think that is a fair. I think that's a fair.
Makes sense.
Fair opinion. Yes.
So my concern, I know there's other positions we need, but the one thing that I'm kind of focused on in my head is cornerback and outside cornerback. I know you talked about slot, but I want to focus on outside.
Sure.
Because we have a second-year player who did real well one corner, but assuming Adoree Jackson leaves, I would be scared to death to go into it with whether we draft a rookie or we use some of the players we have as the solution there. So the question I have for you is, who do you feel would be good signings at, let's say, the 10, maybe no more than $12 million a year mark or less at that cornerback?
Outside or slot?
Outside.
I think if you're looking at 10 to 12, you might be able to get Chidobe Awuzie for that type of money. He's a veteran that's been in the league in a while, 28. I think Kendall Fuller might go for a little bit more than that, but he's a good player. I don't know what Shane Bowen thinks of them, but there are 2 Tennessee Titan outside cornerbacks that are available in Sean Murphy-Bunting and Christian Fulton.
Mm-hmm.
Those guys would be well under the $10 million range, though, at least in my opinion. I think those guys would be on the lower end. You want a veteran that's a little bit older but comes in and always does a solid job wherever he goes. You like Steven Nelson, who's 31. Again, a little old for my taste, but he's a guy that's been doing it a long time and is always solid wherever he goes. Then you have some younger guys. Like, do you like Rock Ya-Sin? Do you like Amik Robertson? Do you like Jeffrey Okudah on a flyer? Does that get you excited?
Okudah
So
intrigues me. He intrigues me because there's been some poor scheme fits, and then obviously he hasn't played well.
And he's been hurt, too.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
You might be able to get Okudah on the bargain basement bin. And if you think that he can do what your new scheme is going to do with your new DC, again, I want to make something very clear to you. We haven't had a chance to talk to Bowen.
I have not said a word to the man.
I've physically seen him, but I've not talked to him yet. And that puts us at a very big disadvantage because we don't know what he wants to run.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so from what you're saying, John, it sounds like there are a lot of options. So
Well, there's a lot of options in the draft, too. Don't forget, this is a deep corner draft.
I understand, and I'm all and hey, if there's an opportunity there, a value pick, I'm all for it. But that drinking from the fire hose thing scares me.
Yeah,
you got away with it. But
what does Bowens think about Trey Hawkins?
I don't think you can walk into the year with him as your starter.
I'm not saying that you do, but you got to let him compete.
Yeah, but he's like a rookie plus, you know.
I know. But anyway, I know Jerome Henderson loves the kid.
So let you get to some more callers, and I'll be calling you again. It might be one more time from here before I'm back out in the streets.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Tim.
Stay well,
Stay
okay?
well, man. Feel better and get that staph infection taken care of. Those things are no joke, man.
No.
They can literally kill you. So please be careful with that. Darius Williams, another outside cornerback that's out there as a veteran that you mentioned earlier in the show.
Yeah,
too, that is another name. So he got released. He's a street free agent. He wouldn't even count in the compensatory pick formula. So
I get the impression, and again, I'm going off of just what is out there, that the Giants are not going to spend big money on a corner. It's going to go to the offensive line and maybe to the pass rusher if they've got the taste for it or the appetite for it. I don't think they're spending a ton of money on a corner.
I think that's veteran stopgap zone.
Yeah.
And remember, they're not playing this heavy man-to-man anymore either. So the importance, I always talked about this week, right?
It's more off coverage now, what we think.
Cover corners, because you're playing so much press man with the blitzes, become much more important. The pass rushers become less important. Well, you're flopping that now with Bowen's system. Pass rushers become more important. Corners become a little less important because you're playing a lot more zone. Not that the position doesn't matter, because you still have to cover in your zone. You match up a lot of that in the zone. You'll still follow the guy around. But for me, pass rusher is now the more important position. So that's what I would kind of prioritize more over the cornerback spot, at least in my humble opinion.
Yeah, I have no problem with what you said, John. And to be honest with you, too, the other thing is you have to remember, sometimes, not always, but sometimes, you do get a bargain basement DB who comes in like a Fabian Moreau, and holy smokes, remember when he came here, he was strictly an afterthought. He was picked up off the recycle bin, and nobody even thought, oh, wow, yeah, he's whatever. He winds up starting almost the whole season for a playoff team.
Yeah. This
happens, right? This does happen. So,
all right, we got a few more pieces of news here I'll get to you, and then we'll get to you in a second, Scott. Diana Rossini, the Titans are working to sign free agent center Lloyd Cushenberry. Sources say the Packers have released David Bakhtiari, according to David Bakhtiari's own Instagram page. I think he put it up on, or Twitter, whatever.
He thanked the Packers fans.
Yeah. You wonder if he's going to retire. He's had a lot of knee issues the last couple of years, so we'll keep an eye on that. Denver, who had to release Justin Simmons to become salary cap compliant after the Russell Wilson cut.
Yep.
They signed safety Brandon Jones to a 3-year deal. I do not have money on that. The Bengals have re-signed their tight end Drew Sample to a 3-year contract extension. I don't believe the Bengals had a tight end on the roster until that move. The Vikings have re-signed offensive lineman David Quessenberry, not to be confused with Lloyd Cushenberry, and also Blake Brandel No word yet on left guard Dalton Reisner, who's expected to explore the free agent market. So that is where we are right now. I don't see any other news at the moment. So, Paul, I got to be honest with you. It's been a little bit quieter than I thought over the first hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I would concur with that.
We've had a few things, but
I would concur with that.
We haven't had the big bombs drop yet.
No.
Your watch okay?
Yeah, I'm just looking here. It went to military time on me, and I'm not sure how I could change that.
Let's go to Scott in New Mexico while Paul figures out his watch. Scott, what's going on, buddy?
Hi, guys.
What's up?
First of all, I just hope Tim feels better because I like listening.
Oh,
to him
Tim's
also.
awesome. Yep. All our calls. And by the way, I know I was giving James and Wilson a hard time earlier. You guys are great, too. Let's just try to stay focused on what's important right now. Go ahead.
Okay. There might be some news. Joe Garofalo just reported, I don't know if you saw it or not, that Philadelphia is definitely interested in Saquon Barkley. And they're going to do what they can, I guess, to see if they can get him to play for Philadelphia. I don't know what that
another
means.
5,000 people reported a lot of stuff, so let me know when something's for real, okay?
You know that's what they just
I got you.
Well, and again, that's going to come down to a money thing. The Eagles do actually have a decent amount of cap space based on how the thing is structured. I don't know how much the Landon Dickerson extension, if at all, impacts that. It might not if it's an extension. But, yeah, I mean, look, that'll be a money thing. The Saquon Barkley thing, guys, it's all about dollars and cents. It's not like the Giants don't want him here.
That's right.
It's just a matter of getting a deal that works for the Giants. And, by the way, the Eagles have never been known to throw big money at running backs or spend high draft picks on running backs. They've considered that position fairly fungible, where they just let DeAndre Swift walk for $8 million a year.
Let Miles Sanders go the year before.
Yeah, and he only signed for $6 million a year. So.
Right. I'm just letting you know what they said.
No, Scott, and I totally appreciate it. I've just been and look, we've heard that about Philly for a while now, based on reports, and just based on Philly's history, I find it hard to believe that they would go well over the top of what the Giants would be willing to offer in that situation. But I could be wrong. We'll have to wait and see.
Okay, my main question is this. The Chicago's best corner, Jalen Johnson, just signed for $75 million.
Yeah, about $20 million a year, give or take.
Right. And the question I have is, does that influence other free agents, and specifically Adoree Jackson? Because I'm wondering where the market's set. Is it the player that becomes important, or how does the market get set?
No, it's both.
When somebody signs for that kind of money.
It's both. I mean, if you're a really good player at the top of your position, what the highest contract is and what other guys sign for at that position certainly matters. I would not put Adoree Jackson, though, in the same category as Jalen Johnson in terms of, at this point in their career, the quality of player.
Okay, so it's really a combination of both things, obviously, when they're looking at players. Mm-hmm. And my last question that I have, as free agency obviously goes through its machinations, tendency is for the signings to come, for the free agents to come later in the week, do you think? Or are they all going to try to make their best offer?
Yeah, usually the big ones come early, Scott, because they have to come early, and here's why.
Okay.
What a team's able to do in signing their second and third tier free agents, pardon me, is determined by how much they spend on their big ticket items. So teams want to figure out what they're doing with their big ticket item, and that'll then dictate what they do with the rest of their free agency moves. So I'm actually surprised that a lot of these mid-range guys have gone off first, because usually guys like to sign their big ticket items first. It's no different than you budgeting for your home budget. Do you start with like what you spend on snacks? No, you start on what you spend on your mortgage, what you spend on your car, and then you figure out, what do I have left to spend on things that aren't as big of a priority. So that's why usually the bigger guys will go off earlier in the process.
Now, the reverse could have happened with these agents for these middle-of-the-road guys who told their guys, look, let's jump quickly at whatever we can get our hands on.
Right.
And that's what probably happened.
And maybe there are teams that know they're not going to spend big on one player. So
they're out of that market.
Those are the teams that can strike on the mid-range guys. Correct. Good point.
Okay.
Good point.
Last point, and then I'll get off the air. Since we have, I believe it's $40 million in cap space, are there ways that the Giants think they might be able to increase that by releasing some other players to get more money to sign more?
I don't think there are. I don't
great
think
players.
Yeah, Scott. I don't think there are any players left that you would release to shed set cap space. I think if they would have done that, they would have done it. Now you could go into the renegotiation market with Andrew Thomas and Dexter Lawrence, or maybe even Bobby Okereke if you want.
Mm-hmm.
And I think those three players are all young enough and good enough where it wouldn't kill you if you decided you wanted to do that. So there are ways to create more if they wanted to, but until you find that you need it, you don't need to do it, because that's something you can literally do at the snap of a finger. The player doesn't even have to approve of that, because they're getting their money up front in the form of a signing bonus in that point. So
they do need to, but they're agreeable.
No, but I think in a lot of these contracts now, it's not like it's in there. Like if the team wants to do it, they can do it. So I'm not even sure they have to ask in some of the situations.
Well, that may be written in. That may be. Yeah. I will say this. Those things are usually done on the back end, because now you've done what you needed to do, figured out, we still need one or two more things to do. Let's try to get a couple of more pennies.
Correct.
That's when you do that, because you're never anxious to push money back. No, nobody, especially Joe Shane, doesn't want to use the credit card too much if he doesn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks for the information, guys. Thanks.
No, great. Appreciate the call, Scott. All right, a couple other small signings here. Commanders plan to sign defensive end Dorrance Armstrong away from the Cowboys. The connection there, of course, Dan Quinn is a guy that was the Cowboys defensive coordinator with Dorrance Armstrong, now the head coach of the Commanders, so he is there. Let's see, what else do we have here? I saw a couple other things here. Gabe Davis going to the Jacksonville Jaguars on a 3-year contract.
Yep.
So I guess that probably means Calvin Ridley's not going to head back there, which is interesting, because remember, if they would have extended Ridley, I think they would have owed a 2nd-round pick instead of a 3rd-round pick.
Yes.
So they actually helped themselves in the draft. But I think Ridley's a better player than Gabe Davis myself, personally.
Yeah, so do I.
And I'm sure the Davis contract is lower. Ridley's probably going to be the highest paid free agent wide receiver on the market at 29. So just something to kind of keep in mind there. All right, 201-939-4513. You could probably squeeze in 2 more calls, guys. I got 1 more on the lines. If you want to call in, we'll try to get you in before the end of the show.
Let's go to say one thing.
Yeah, go ahead, Pearson.
I think snacks are a priority.
Yes, well,
we knew somebody had a dissent.
Snacks are a priority. I would have make it a top priority.
Mortgage, really?
Yeah, well, okay. How about rent, Pearson? Does that rank for you? Okay, good.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and now like childcare.
As long as it doesn't cut too much into the snacks.
Well, let's be honest. Number 1 on Pearson's list is green fees, which is number 1, so he can get his golf in.
Correct.
And then, of course, he has to do the cover fees for all the clubs he's going to at night. So those are the 2 things.
See, I was worried. I was worried about his video game expenses.
I don't think Pearson's a big video game guy.
No. Good. Glad to hear that.
What's your problem? Now, you know what? I'm not even going to ask the question.
Don't go there.
Let's go to Julian in Florida. He's up next. Hi, Julian.
John, Paul, how you guys doing?
We're great, Julian. What's up?
Not much, guys. Thank you so much for the draft coverage, the combine coverage. I know you guys look forward to that every year.
We do. Thank
you. So
you.
do we as Giants fans. Thank you so much for covering that.
Thank you for listening.
Here. So, yeah, I've been a long-time caller, listener since 2015. I just want to throw a point in there. Number 1, shout out to Charlie in Maryland. I never thought I'd say that in my life.
Charlie in Portland, Maine, you mean?
Charlie.
Lennon, Maryland. Maybe Lennon, Maryland.
No, he means Charlie.
Does he really?
Oh, yeah.
Uh-oh.
Was it Maine? Is it Maine? I thought it was Maryland.
No, it's Len in Maryland and it's Charlie in Maine. You're combining them into one
What
person.
did he do?
Well, when John and I forget her name, Madeline were on with Joe Shane, he called in.
Oh boy!
Just,
all right.
Went straight for the jugular.
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead. Next point.
Oh, it's fine. Relax. People
He's
know what
but
happened. It's okay.
Charlie's head's going to grow 25 times.
Okay, that's fair. I agree.
That's the problem.
That's fine.
Paul, I'm not going to mention Daniel Jones on this call. All I'm saying is, as fans that are passionate, and as much as Charlie is, your one phone call ever that you want to make is to the GM, and he took full advantage of that.
No, look, I will give Charlie credit. He knew exactly what he wanted to ask. He asked it in a succinct manner. He was very direct, and I could tell Charlie, unlike most of his calls where he comes in and just flies at the hip, he actually came in very prepared, knowing what he wanted to ask Joe. So good for him.
And John, I was looking at your face when I was looking at your eyes when he mentioned it, and I was just laughing. I was like, oh my God, he went straight there. I can't believe he didn't mention the O-line. I mean, what the heck? He didn't mention O-line at all. Anyways,
all right.
My point I wanted to make, guys, my point I wanted to make is, Joe Shane and Dable, they stress out one thing, and it's actually 3 things that they stress out when any player to the Giants, when they're talking to the media and they're talking to us as fans, what are the three things they always say? It's smart, tough, dependable.
Yeah.
Right? What are we saying to any free agents or any rookies that we're signing? If we have players here like Xavier McKinney, who have literally represented tough and dependable. The smart thing, we can debate on because of the whole thing that he got through, but whatever. That was an accident, quote unquote. But tough and dependable, playing 100% of the snaps.
Well, this year, yes. This year, but he did have injuries in 2 years of his career, in the 2 of his first 4 years.
But, I mean, come on, John. 100% of snaps, that is dependable right
this
there.
Year? No. This year, Xavier McKinney was extremely dependable. There was no doubt about that.
I guess what I'm trying to say is, what are we saying to anyone that's coming on to the Giants if you are doing the smart, tough, dependable thing, you are living by the mantra, and we're still not signing you? You know, and Barkley breaks my heart too. I get that one a little bit more because the market is saturated, and what Joe Shane said about comps and houses, it's true. It's a weird way to put it, but it's the truth. Like, you are not going to pay over a house if everything around the comps around the houses are a little bit cheaper. But Barkley has represented the Giants to the heart, for the community, for everything. He said he wants to be a Giants for life. He wants to be a Giants for life. It's just, you know, it's we got to sign our guys. We got to keep our home guys.
Well, Julian, it always comes down to a dollar amount. And what's going to happen here, if I had to bet, whether Saquon Barkley re-signs here or signs somewhere else, I would bet it's more likely than not he's going to make less money than what the Giants offered him last year.
That's a good bet.
And which was $10 million, right? Is that what we offered?
It was more than that.
Based again, I don't know what the actual offer was. Based on reports, it was closer to 12.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I guess my point is we should bring McKinney back. He did everything he should have done. He played 100% of the snaps. He's a leader. He's a captain. And let's not forget that he's 24 years old. That is huge.
No, look, Julian. I get what you're saying, but I'm gonna throw this at you the same way I threw to Len when he asked. All right. And by the way, Christian Wilkins, 4-year, $110 million deal with the Raiders. That is, you know what?
With who?
With the Raiders. The Raiders.
Oh my God!
They had a lot of money to spend, so I'm not surprised by that. Not shocking.
I thought the Vikings would grab him.
Yeah, the Raiders had a lot of cap space, and their defense needs players. They don't have a ton of players on.
And by the way, Antonio Pierce knows the value of a good defensive tackle as well as anybody does.
To your point, I'm trying to remember what you were asking me. Oh yeah, McKinney. So
McKinney.
Absolutely. So here's what I'm going to throw at you. Let's say instead of paying Xavier McKinney $13 million as a 24-year-old, right? What if you can bring in Jordan Fuller to be your starting free safety for $6 million? And then you can use that $7 million to go sign a starting outside cornerback or a starting slot cornerback. So
but you're talking about in 2 years, but in 2 years we need another safety because he's not going to last that long.
He's 27. Jordan Whitehead's 27 years old. Jordan Fuller's 26 years old. Geno Stone is 24 years old. Deshaun Elliott is 26 years old. Darnell Savage is more of a slot, 26 years old. These are all guys that can play 3 or 4 years for you without a problem, that are going to be still in their prime. So, again, the point with safeties, like Julian Love signed for $6 million a year last year, right, with Seattle.
Yep.
So you can find a good – I'm not saying these guys are like average plays. These are above average, good starting safeties. You could find one for $6 million a year, which could be half of what you might have to pay a guy like Xavier McKinney, and then you go use that other $6 or $7 million you have left over, and you can get a starting slot. You can get the top starting slot corner on the market for that type of money, whether it's Kenny Moore or Jordan Lewis or whomever you want to bring in. So you're getting 2 starters for the price of 1. So I get what you're saying. I'm not, playing down McKinney. He was great last year. It's just a matter of how you want to allocate those resources. I would rather have a good starting slot and a good starting safety that are both in their mid-20s than having one very good starting safety. You know what I mean?
I know this requires patience, and it's hard for everybody to hold their breath. But at the end of free agency, hold on, understand something. For everybody who says, can't they go just another $1 million or $2 million to get this guy back? Just remember something, that on the back end of free agency, when you're still trying to fill those last few holes that you need to plug, you can get a veteran free agent sometimes on a 1-year minimum for $1 million. And that guy winds up starting for you. And so, you know what I'm saying? It's easy for us to say when it's not our money that, stretch another $1 million or so on the offer. That's easy for us to say.
But again, in this case, it might not even.
It's not even about. I know that. Okay, listen. I know he's going to be expensive, but the whole entire point I'm trying to make, and you guys are making great points, and I would love to debate this all day long. But the only point that I'm trying to get through is that the smart, tough, dependable mantra hangs on every single wall of that building. It is over everything. I mean, that is what they imprinted into you when you come to the Giants. What I'm saying is, what are we saying to any free agent that comes in? Think about if you are Xavier McKinney, you're on a contract year, smart, tough, dependable, played 100% of the snaps. You did everything you had to do. You're a captain. You're young. You're buying into the Giants. You want to be here. You're playing the mantra. You are the mantra, and you still might not get signed. That's all I'm trying to say.
And Julian, I appreciate the call.
Yeah.
Totally understand where you're coming from in that. I'll just say two things. One, the dependable thing with Barkley with the injuries is a thing. It's a thing. We love Saquon. We've had this conversation about it a million times. The Giants love Saquon.
Yep.
But a dependability thing is with all running backs, really, right? How can you stay healthy at the position? And he's had issues staying healthy over the course of full seasons. This season wasn't as the year before. And again, love to have him back. It's $1.10. Same thing with McKinney. If you can get him back on a good contract, that's great. But this is also opportunity cost. By paying these guys, you can't pay other guys. So it's not like, all right, well, we lose out on McKinney, then that money just disappears. That's not how this works. You take that money and then you can allocate it to two other players. Can you get more out of that money for any of these players by allocating it a different way? Can you get more value to your organization by allocating the money a different way? And I understand. We were so psyched when they got Xavier McKinney in the second round. We thought it was a good pick. And he's been a good player here.
Absolutely.
Saquon Barkley has been the Giants' best offensive player since he's been in the building. And it hasn't been close. Except for maybe Andrew Thomas at left tackle. I'm talking skill position guys. Right. Great players. Love them. But again, this is the first time I've mentioned this story in the show, and I can't believe it is. Production per dollar. Are you getting the most production per dollar by paying a running back and a safety big money, which are literally the two most depressed markets in the National Football League right now in terms of value? That's what they are.
Yep.
No two positions have taken a bigger hit in terms of what they're getting paid per year than those two positions. You talk to Joel Corey, you talk to Pat Kerwin, you talk to all the guys at the Combine last week, Paul, and again, find all those interviews on the Giants Huddle podcast.
They were all there.
They all said under $10 million a year for all these running backs. That's just where it is, and I think safety's not that far behind.
What was our caller's name? The last
Julian.
caller? Julian?
Excellent call, by the way.
Julian, it's a great call. You sounded young, and your viewpoint indicates that too, because if you were pre-1993 before the salary cap and all this free agency stuff, everything that you said would have held water, and you could keep all these guys. If you had the money, there were no cap restrictions, and you could keep all the guys that you wanted. But unfortunately, you were born too late. You're in the salary cap era and the free agency era.
I'm happy I managed to hold off this until the very end of the show.
Well, because the caller's asking why.
I know.
I appreciate his philosophy, and it would have applied 30 years ago. It doesn't apply today.
And again, if the Giants end up bringing those two guys back, they're really good players, and they decide that that's the best allocation of the money, that's fine.
That's it.
And we're just giving you both sides of the coin here, right? Where if they do it here, here's why they do it. If they do it the other way, this is why they do it the other way. There are two sides to both coins here, and we're not going to know what the right side of the coin is for another 2-3 years after we see what these players do when they're either return or they leave. We're not going to know the answer to that.
No question. Anyway.
Good show, Paul.
Yeah, it's wow. That was 90 minutes that flew by in a heartbeat.
It really did. And we'll be back tomorrow. I believe it is Lance and Cross tomorrow at 12:30. So tune in for that on Big Blue Kickoff Live, presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the New York Giants. You want to keep track of all.
And on YouTube.
And that's right. We're streaming on YouTube for the first time tomorrow, Pearson. Thank you for that. I appreciate that. So go tune in, YouTube tomorrow, 12:30. Lance and Howard will be with you. Check that out. And, of course, Giants season tickets, folks, they're available for 2024. Go to Giants.com/tickets for a limited inventory that's available. You get all a bunch of member benefits and great stuff. Get your Giants season tickets. And to keep track of all of our Giants programming, download Giants TV, the Giants official connected TV streaming app. It brings original video content and game highlights on demand and direct to Big Blue fans. Giants TV is free on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire TV and the Giants mobile app. For Paul Dottino, I'm John Schmeelk. Thanks for being with us on this special supersized edition of Big Blue Kickoff Live presented by Cadillac, the official luxury vehicle of the Giants. We'll see you tomorrow at 12:30. Everybody enjoy free agency.
Fargo, the new virtual assistant from Wells Fargo, makes banking faster and easier. Like this.
Fargo, what's my checking account routing number?
And this.
Fargo, turn off my debit card.
And this.
Fargo, what did I spend on groceries last month?
And that's just the beginning. Do you, Fargo? You can in the Wells Fargo mobile app. Learn more at wellsfargo.com/getfargo.
Terms and conditions apply. Your mobile carrier's availability and message and data rates may apply. Wells Fargo Bank, N.A., member FDIC.